And in the harsh reality is that Dark is the one that's supposed to win. As they broke down on those beautiful couches over there, he just does against non-Koreans. The last time he lost to a non-Korean Protoss was 2012. Back in 2012, my Bulldog was 1 year old. It was a brand spry little pup. So do I think that this is the time?
Your Bulldog was never spry, but continue.
Yeah, you're right. Do I think this is the time where this guy does it, ShoWTimE? I don't know. I want to believe.
All right. We'll believe for now. Down here in the bottom right, almost indestructible from the hands of non-Koreans, it is Dark.
And his opponent in the top left-hand side, hailing from Germany, but not literally, it's the Red Protoss, ShoWTimE.
Thank you, Jeff. All right. Well, I mean, I think that Dark has been just about unstoppable, but if I had to make a short list of players that definitely could defeat him for non-Koreans, I do. Oh, yes.
And it's instantly scouted.
Well, now I know he can be defeated because this is definitely not... you don't want that to be scouted instantaneously, right? There's no way he's going to make a Nexus. Yeah, look at that. 2 gateways. I mean, that's going to be a great counter against this.
It's interesting. In my opinion, the 2-gate response to this, now obviously we're in a little bit of, it's not quite uncharted obviously, but let's just call it infrequent territory, is tough. Because yes, you'll get the hatchery, and as long as you can kind of fluidly transition into something decent after that, you can be in good shape. But this is a setup play. That hatchery's not meant to stay there, obviously. It's meant to discombobulate and weird out the Protoss and get a different reaction on them. It's going to be Spine Crawlers, by the way, so Spine Crawler Ling. And in which case the hatchery is actually more important. I will go as far as to say here. But if we can get to the mid game and you have roaches coming out, speedlings, and all you have is zealots and stalkers, it's not very good for you. But if you can kill this, I mean, it's all about this right here. This is an all-in, by the way, with the drones coming out.
Well, no doubt about that. He is really going for broke right now. He actually turns his drones around, so I think he's giving up on it.
He is.
And I mean, the thing is, he might be able to kind of make this into some sort of build because, as you said, you know, we have this 2 gateway play. Look, like right now, ShoWTimE is countering it very hard, right? He's got the extra 2 pylons outside his wall. He's made 2 stalkers. These are not early game units. He started a shield barrier. Looks like he canceled it, so he's starting to feel like, oh, okay, you're not. This isn't too crazy.
You're not going for a real with this, and that's a good pickup by ShoWTimE and good of you to point it out. It's also important to note that the Chronobus will start to go back to the probes because they are going to slide into a more normal opening. So nice idea from Dark, by the way, because this is a good throw them off. It's a strong strategy. It makes things weird. And for ShoWTimE, who's facing a player like Dark, it could, oh, wow. Okay, I was going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm going to just cut myself off here. The aggression's going to double here as instead of going for a Nexus is ShoWTimE, he's going to probably go for some aggression. Now, a couple of Lings are inside of his base here. And it is literally just a couple of Lings with an Adept there, so that should be put down pretty hard now. No more missed mining time. Shield barriers going down at the front over there. And this is in between the natural and third, by the way. So if he can really lock down here, he can get both bases.
Yeah, if he kills one, I mean, that is a huge moment right there. But he has hatched some Lings over on this side of the map. Looks like the Adepts won't be able to instantly join those Stalkers. And that makes me think, you know, when this is just mass Ling, even with those shield batteries, the Stalker damage output isn't going to really be high enough to stop these Lings.
Shield barrier's finishing, though. If he can, so he needs a couple more. If he can wall off those Stalkers and kind of lock them in bind. And there is the Nexus, by the way. So it's kind of weird because he's a little bit, and this is actually, to say this, by the way, this is good for Dark. I know that he might lose this hatchery, but ShoWTimE's improving right now. He's investing in this kind of like proxy-based thing. And it looks like it might get the hatchery. Well, if he doesn't pay attention and the stalkers are pinned back like that, they're going to focus down the hatchery.
I love it. That targeting is absolutely awesome. And he is going to get the hatchery. That is a big kill for ShoWTimE.
Pulls back.
The instant recall,
Not bad.
Even
that actually makes the investment obviously a lot less. That is still 3 shield barriers and a pylon that die for a hatchery, but that's still okay. And just okay, though. I know there's going to be people at home that look at this and say, Jeff, are you crazy? This is amazing for ShoWTimE. It's really not actually. He is up in workers. But with the speedlings out and there's the tech follow-up being a robo that just now started, he has no map presence for all of time now. There is a roach swarm going down.
For all of time.
For all of time.
You're right.
So just for now, into the future. StarCraft 3, I don't care. Still has no map presence.
His map presence is not long for this world, as some might say.
But he is going to be kind of held back there. But the thing is, Dark looks like he's going to kind of double down this. He still hasn't built the hatchery at the natural. He's not really saturating. There's no drones coming out. So I think he's just about to all in again.
Yeah, he might just be going for like some Ravager play at this point. When you just don't have that map presence that you're talking about, if you're sitting behind a building wall, Ravagers are really good.
Yes. Ravager Ling is very good against early Protoss, by the way, too, because the answers for that kind of composition is like your AoE, anything Stargate. So obviously, Dark doesn't have a scout on a Stargate, and if that was the fault for ShoWTimE, that would have been really strong. But that is also weak against like early Hydra or something like this. So the game gets kind of weird and simplified in this case. But what makes me nervous for Dark in this case is that he has no saturation at that expansion. There is no natural. That gets scouted out by ShoWTimE. It's fantastic. In fact, he sees the hatchery, but whatever. He sees Roaches coming out. He knows what he's facing, and he knows how desperate Dark is to make this work. So for ShoWTimE, if he can hold it here, it's a huge leg up.
Well, you're certainly right about that. If he does not die to this, he wins the game.
He's up 16 workers.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, is Dark is just not interested in having a good economy right now. This is going to come down so heavily to the micro, to the corrosive biles coming down. How are those force fields going to come into play?
Yep.
You know, he is about to have 2 Immortals. If he can get a Prism out as well, this becomes infinitely more holdable.
Oh, the Prism in particular. Yeah, you're exactly right. He's got 3 shield batteries, but 2 more to join that first one to finish here in a second. So that'll buy quite a bit of time. It's not something that you can rely on forever. And with the Lings behind this, by the way, if you're wondering, it's like, well, that's just 5 Ravagers. Yes, but it's all the Lings behind that. If you move out there to deal with those Ravagers, you'll get surrounded and killed almost instantly. So ShoWTimE's just buying time. He's got the workers. He knows that Dark has to make this work in the biggest of ways.
I feel like he just needs to add a couple more shield batteries. I see he is getting another one. That's a 4th. That's inside. All right, he's starting to micro pretty heavily here. Has to be very careful not to get hit by those biles too much. Takes a couple hits, so the batteries are getting a bit lower, but really, this is so all in by Dark, but he is starting to drone behind it.
Well, the Prism goes out across the map. I'm actually really interested in that, because I think it could have been such a great offensive tool here.
Yeah.
But the Ling count's getting low, by the way. Each time he kind of goes forward and trims down a lot of those Lings, because Ravagers by themselves, they're just kind of like catalysts. They're saying, you have to come out here eventually because of our range, but it's the Lings that were the big threat there. And now, ShoWTimE's bought so much time that the Lings all of a sudden aren't a threat. As many have died, or there's enough warp-ins, that kind of thing has come to go. And Dark has caught up in workers, but in that time, ShoWTimE has established the Robotech. He has a Warp Prism out, and I feel like he just adds some gateways, and he might just push out here, because we're looking at a Zerg, excuse me, that's just not that developed. I don't think he even has a lair.
No, he is really just sitting tight on Ling Ravager at the moment, trying to recover his drone count. He's still behind in workers, though, as ShoWTimE really hits his 2-base economy stride.
And one of the weird kind of weaknesses of ShoWTimE, if you want to talk about this way, because he both wins and loses off this concept, but sometimes he can be too defensive, right? So there are a lot of Protoss like your Stats or your Zest who, in this situation, after they hold that off, they drop 6 gates, they push out the Warp Prism and say, the game's over, I'm just going to win right now. ShoWTimE's not that guy. It's Twilight Council, it's Forge, it is a few more gateways, of course, and he still very well may push out, but it just takes him a little bit longer. Now, there's a lot of players that'll kind of take that rope and hang themselves with it. They're like, wow, the Protoss isn't attacking, so I'll quadruple expand and double Evo, and then he pushes out and you die. Or there's the Zerg players like a Dark, perhaps, that says, okay, I'm going to get my drone count slightly ahead of you, and then I'm going to muscle up for that push out, and you're in trouble.
Well, you know, he is starting to move out, but you're right. His unit count hasn't increased that much, but he waited quite a while for this push, so Dark is nothing but more ready for it. ShoWTimE looks like he's just kind of sharking about, as you once said.
Right. He's going to take that 3rd Nexus, and that's fine and good. I don't want to sit here and talk about this like it's like clearly the biggest mistake. It just makes me nervous as a ShoWTimE fan where, again, he can win and lose off of that, but I do feel like Dark kind of gimmied him a nice early game that ShoWTimE was able to repel, and I do feel like the decisive maneuver of just going out there and finishing him might have been the better choice, but we'll have to wait and see. He's going to take that 3rd. And it is a Temple Archives charge and only the +1 attack upgrade behind that. The lair did finish, so we're getting Roach speed and then a Baneling Nest. And I think for Dark, on this map, we should have talked about this too, but Fracture, small, aggressive maps. So that's why you're seeing these kind of tactics from these guys.
Yeah, and that might be why Dark feels like this is the map to do these types of rushes on anyways. But, you know, the fact that he is able to kind of wax on, wax off in a certain way here. He's like, okay, that didn't work, now this. I lost a hatchery, okay, now this. And, oh, this isn't going to work? Well, I've been making drones behind. I figured out that this wasn't going to work before even ShoWTimE knew he wasn't going to die. I knew he wasn't going to die. So, Dark definitely showing his flexibility here.
Yes, and that's part of what's made him such a huge threat and champion caliber player. Is just his, when you look at Dark, you don't get to say, well, he likes to take it to late game, and that's all he does. He does all kinds of things. Baneling speed, +1 melee, lots of banelings. We have 18 queued up to join the few that were already made, I do believe. So this is going to become, as we said earlier, kind of shark-infested waters. We talked about ShoWTimE being the player sharking about, but soon you're going to want to play that Jaws music here because he's out there, sure, but it's going to be a very aggressive stance from our Zerg player.
Yeah, look at this. He's actually getting in immediately with a bit of a Ling counterattack here. I do not think that attacking up that hill is necessarily going to be what does it for him. These slow banelings, though, having a hard time connecting right now.
Yeah, and he's actually able to use a lot of them up before that baneling speed finishes, which is approaching finality here in a second. But we're going to have a pretty big engagement. Force was going down, locking off a lot of the Ravagers behind that. Baneling's dying pretty ineffectively. Ling's starting to come behind this, but there is Archons there, and that's not the best positioning for him. ShoWTimE doing a pretty good job here, but a central shot from that Ravager Corrosive Bile. It actually gets quite a bit down there, but this hatchery in danger. I'm a little bit worried about the insulation for our Protoss player. He's up in supply. Okay, there is a counterattack over here. Brilliant move from him. But if he loses his army, it could be a bad spot for him, Arto.
Yeah, he needs to at least keep these Immortals alive for the most part. But we've seen some great Ling surrounds, which are allowing those Corrosive Biles to do their work. He goes forward right now with a whole bunch. Look at that. Hits a few more, but 3 of those Immortals get out. In the meantime, that counter harassment, this is why ShoWTimE's one of the best.
He picks off the 3rd and 4th. So yes, he loses a lot of the meat of that army, but we're not talking about a fully developed Zerg right now. He has no bank for the most part. He's in this, low 100s of minerals and gas. But he doesn't have like a lurker tech or some kind of critical tech that makes up the difference for what's happening right now. It's just Ravagers, which the answer is already in development and at play for ShoWTimE. He's got Storm finishing as an answer for Lings and Banelings as well. And as you point out, Artosis, this counter harass continues with that Warp Prism out there. There's no Hydras, there's no huge number of Queens or Mutas or anything like that to chase it down. It's going to continue to be a nuisance.
So what you're saying is this looks good for ShoWTimE.
Looks really good for ShoWTimE.
Okay, and I agree. It looks good for ShoWTimE. I'm expecting to be able to take this home, but one thing I want to mention is that Cyril's the best at basically everything, but actually when you are low on drones and trying to play a longer game, no one equals Dark in that regard. Well, I mean, maybe Cyril would, but he never takes that much damage early on. But Dark is like the guy that can play with 44 drones the entire game and get to Hive Tech and have upgrades, and you're like, what happened?
Yeah.
How are you alive?
He's so in these weird moments.
Yeah, if someone can kind of figure this one out, it would be Dark, but I feel like ShoWTimE's just going to go kill him.
Sometimes in StarCraft, you can just make it into an equation, right? Like, you can be as clever as you want, but if I just pummel you with just overwhelming force, there's no amount of cleverness that will dig you out of that hole. And we have this army moving over here. There's no sentries, mind you. Only the 1 Archon, but still, ShoWTimE does such a good job of positioning his army. You very rarely see him just overcommit to a fight. Mostly it's a trade. Obviously, sometimes compositions can win out the day, but for right now, ShoWTimE's expanding behind that, taking his 4th. He's pushing out in 2 different angles. A lot of good connects there from those Banelings on the Zealots. They've mostly evaporated. But this counterattack then has no Banelings to answer for. It's going to take the whole army of Dark to go over there and deal with that. The 4th does get canceled here by Dark. Nice move there. But in doing so, he loses his 3rd, and it's down to just basically that 4th base getting resaturated right now.
And he really can't be losing yet another hatchery. He's lost like 5 hatches so far this game. Doesn't want to make it 6. He can't just sit on 2-base economy any longer.
And every storm on Ravagers, by the way, is devastating. They're not meant to take damage. They're meant to deal it and just kind of sit behind frontline units. Going down that ramp, not a thing to be had here by Dark, who's, by the way, falling behind in supply. It's 87 to 148. Big warping in the main is going to be the flag to say, get out. ShoWTimE takes the first game in the short best of 3, Arto. Dark, this could be our first upset if it goes this way.
I got to tell you, that's a big deal right there. And Dark, I'm sure, is a little bit miffed at himself. Fracture, as you were saying, is a smaller map. He went for an aggressive build. ShoWTimE scouted it instantly, handled it well. I felt like Dark was bending over backwards. Like he was like a yoga master or something with how he put together different parts of that game when it looked like, oh, this was an all-in and you should be dead now. But no, Dark continues to play, but I mean, he's called the wall for a reason, right?
Yep.
You run into him so many times and you are going to fall over.
You either fall over or you fall through it is ideally what Dark would like to do there. And I do want to kind of comment on something you talked about, because I think at first glance it does look like it's kind of weird. It's like, why did Dark try this really crazy build? And a lot of people are going to be questioning that. But for me personally, that's how Dark got here, okay? Dark did not ride this wave of him just being better than everyone. He's very, very good, but he's hard as an opponent. He's not necessarily the top-notch, like, you don't look at him and be like, he's the best lurker player. I liked a lot of what you were saying throughout the series where it's like, he can get the game into weird spots, and then that's kind of where he excels at. He tried to do that here. It didn't work out this time, but I'm okay with him taking those risks because ShoWTimE is actually of that class of non-Korean and just overall StarCraft 2 player where you don't get to just be like, everyone's better than him. He has to do something weird to beat you. No. ShoWTimE's as good as all these guys. When he loses, they outplay him. That's how he loses. So I'm okay with Dark taking that and trying to drag it into his dirty mud pit of where he plays the game. It didn't work out that time, so it's going to be fun to see for him in this best of 3. What did he have in store as his go-to after that? Because if you think for a second he's going to come back to this next game with a hatchery and proxy spine crawler stuff like that, no, he's not going to do that. There's no way.
No, I would definitely agree with you on that. And with our next maps, Acid Plant, and I believe Lost and Found after that, these are like the real standard maps, right? These are the maps that everyone has played a million times. They're kind of like considered the most balanced, best maps overall. They aren't too small or anything like that. But, I mean... that's going to be where I think we see Dark back up into a more standard play. Maybe he just goes for the Hydralisk Baneling that has been so effective for him in the past. But it is kind of an interesting clash of styles as well, right? Because ShoWTimE is basically the German equivalent of Stats. You know, he's just this great defensive, awesome Protoss player that can play the long game very well. And then Dark is a player that, I mean, he's good at all areas, but he does excel in those fringes. But it seems like ShoWTimE will like go to the fringe, battle you there for a moment, then pull it back into his territory. And that's part of like when you were talking about how he wasn't counterattacking too quickly in the early game. That's what that was. He was saying, yeah, we've done this weird dance. Okay, I'm going to sit for a minute, make sure all my ducks are in a row, and then we're going to go back into it.
Yep, beautifully executed by Mr. ShoWTimE here. We have a bit of break here as we get into this next game here in just a few moments. Thank you all for tuning in. We really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We had a record-breaking viewership day 1 on a Friday. A lot of you chose to watch some awesome early BlizzCon StarCraft with us. We really appreciate that. I also want to give a shout out to our observers. We haven't talked a whole lot about that, but we brought in a bunch. We've got Mapu, Coca back there, making sure Indy, making sure that the gameplay is top-notch for you guys. So much love to them. Blizzard's taking pretty darn good care of us. We're having a good time, a lot of laughs back here, and we're loving it. This is the celebration of the year of StarCraft 2, and it's been awesome, Arthos.
Yeah, and it's only going to get more awesome as we get towards the end of this tournament.
I am hyped beyond belief.
Yeah, still at the beginning here in our second match of the day. In the top left of Acid Plant, we have Dark.
And his opponent on the bottom right-hand side, leading the series 1-0 from Germany, it is ShoWTimE. Team Arma had a great WCS season. They broke down on the couches down there that 2017 was not the best year for ShoWTimE. But what I find interesting and always kind of relevant to note, the not best year for ShoWTimE is still a year of like making top 8s, top 16s. He does very well. It's just that he is actually, as he is here at BlizzCon, on that very short list of players where he is capable of beating a Beyond in the year he wins the World Championship, or in this case, leading Dark 1-0, a guy who hasn't seen the loss screen to a non-Korean Protoss in 6 years. It's ridiculous numbers.
It certainly is, and ShoWTimE is one of those players as well. I remember last year, it's like ShoWTimE's not at BlizzCon. That feels weird. With the way that we do this, it's like you just expect certain players. It's kind of like this year. Hey, Jeff, Innovation's not here this year.
I know. How'd that even happen?
Yeah, right?
Because he's still in the finals of every tournament I talk about.
I know. But, you know, sometimes this happens. StarCraft's a tough game to keep complete consistency at, which, again, is part of the reason why we're looking directly at Marvin Serral is like, what the hell's going on here? But that aside, I mean, Dark has been pretty consistent overall, but not to the level that he aspires to. This guy wants to be a legend. He wants to be the man that you think of when you think of StarCraft 2. And, I mean, he's had some good results. He got second place in 2016 at the World Championship, but the fact that he has opened up here in his best matchup, which is Dark versus a non-Korean, and he has lost the first game. I'm a little bit nervous for him right now, is all I'm saying.
Well, I want to make one note on that because I think it's really interesting to talk about, and you know, you and I like to talk about these things, but Dark, it's funny because not a lot of people talk about this, but I'm going to come out and say this word that's almost sacrilegious in StarCraft. There is actually luck involved. You can be very, very, very good, and then it actually still does have some luck there. And I'm not necessarily saying that it's bad luck for the reasons why Dark hasn't won all the GSLs and all the major tournaments, but he is. Is anyone going to look at him and say he's not as good as these other players? Is anyone going to say that? I don't think so, but he does mix it up in best ofs. He has different styles. He does take risks. And every once in a while, those things click into place, and with his skill set, you win the biggest of tournaments. But for him, it just hasn't really happened that much, if at all. So it is kind of interesting to look at it that way, too.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, as you said, there is a lot of luck. I mean, we saw that in the last series anyways. Haas not even taking a map off stats, but we'll talk more about that later. Of course, whoever loses this has to go into that meat grinder that is the loser match. And
the meat grinder.
The meat grinder against Haas.
Yeah, okay. If ShoWTimE completes this, do you see Haas beating Dark? You think that lightning strikes twice?
Are you kidding me? Have you seen shield batteries in Immortals?
Okay. I'd love to.
Yeah.
That is the best chance that Haas has there.
Maybe.
All right. Well, that'll be potentially the next match before we ever get there. ShoWTimE's got to seal the deal here. Now, Artosis wisely made a prediction. He said, I think Dark's going to come into this next game and play it pretty straight up, maybe Hydraling, Baneling. And so far, it's looking to be exactly that. The Baneling Nest does go down a little bit early there, as well as Nevo Chamber. I wouldn't read too much into that. To me, that's a little bit more of a counter-aggression type of move. It is a little bit early. Typically, you add that after Hydras or at least at Lair.
Well, if you're getting it that early, that has to be for melee attack, right?
Well, no, the Evo Chamber, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
No, the Baneling Nest is what I'm talking about.
Oh, does he have a Baneling Nest
He
already?
was building one. Well, you canceled it, I guess.
Okay.
Or maybe I made it up. That's fair enough.
Up, Jeff. That's all right.
I might have made it up. Listen.
It's okay. Drones and Baneling Nests look the same on the production tab.
My jokes, 85% I say. My analysis is more like a 65-75. It's a little bit lower percentage.
And look at this. He actually predicted this perfectly. He's going +1 melee.
Nest.
Oh, you had Future Sight. I see what's going on. But if you go +1 melee Zerglings against someone who's going to Stargate Phoenix,
oh yeah,
this is not a universe in which Dark will lose this game, right?
Well, it's not a universe where the Protoss gets a third, is what I would at least agree with, which very often equals them losing. Heavy drone here, too. There was a funny meme a few years ago of, like, what's your response to Phoenix? And it was just to make more drones. Because you will lose drones, but also they can't really do much other than that. They're going to kill overlords, they're going to kill queens, or kill drones. So you just make more drones. This is a interesting, I don't want to quite call it a throwback, because the 2 Stargate Phoenix follow-up is something that is still fairly prevalent in the meta. It's just that it was all the rage for a while, just a little while ago. Now, there's a couple of Adepts tucked in, and I believe that's a shield batter being added. It's a fairly safe base, even against +1 Lings, which will finish up fairly soon.
Yeah. Well, I find it interesting that ShoWTimE, okay, he's adding some more shield batteries, so that's good, because he's scouted what's going on. He's still making the Phoenix, which I don't think he should necessarily abandon that plan. He's got to do harassment.
Yeah.
But I just wonder if he's going to be able to keep this third base up with just 2 Adepts there. He sends 2 in to kill some drones. I don't actually like that move, Jeff, at all. Like, I feel like when you see that early evolution chamber, keep all your units in between pylons back at your third and natural.
Well, it's going to be 2 Adepts, 2 Zealots, and an Oracle. And with the double robo added behind this, there's quite a few Lings coming. I was just going to say, the gamble here is that if Dark commits to that and doesn't get the damage in, Lings are not expensive, they're Larva expensive. So the opportunity loss of those could have been drones, or their Hydras, that's where the real cost comes in. But he's so far not committing to it. He's kind of circling around outside, and I feel like that is the right play. He's adding 6 Banelings, though. Where are those being made?
12 Banelings now, look at that. Yeah, I think he's going to come in and try to just smash everything.
And I think he's going in both sides, by the way. He's going to say, go ahead, micro both spots.
Well, I mean, how do you end up pulling? Oh, God, that's such a good find with the Oracle. That is such a good find.
He's on top. No, he saw it, and it's amazing. He actually, wow.
Okay, good luck to these probes. Get him out of there.
It's the natural that I was worried about, yeah. Oh, wow, he actually.
Look at that flank of Banelings right
still
there.
Can, yeah. The force field. Well,
that's kind of a funny force field, yeah.
It actually ended up perfect. That's amazing.
Yeah. Could not have really defended this better so far. Oh, well, then there's that part. Oh, my gosh. I spoke too soon.
It was 100% the best defense ever. and then that. And it's just unfortunate the second you said that happened. But 15 probes do go down.
There is luck in broadcasting as well, folks.
There is, absolutely.
Not just StarCraft.
To give you an idea, though, of how good of a defense and how much that was leveraged, I mean, even with the 15 probes going down, ShoWTimE's only down 5 workers.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Supplies, they're just about the same. So it's a huge commitment from the Zerg. And because everything else was held off fairly well, it's okay for ShoWTimE. The shame of this is that if those 15 probes don't die, which they very well shouldn't have, by the way, they didn't have to. You could pull that back. The Oracle kills the Banelings, etc., etc. We're talking about a Protoss that's up 10 workers, up in supply, and now, just now, Hydras are coming out as Immortals are being chrono boosted out.
Well, there's still something scary here, though, because Baneling speed's going to be done, +2 melee is going to be done. +2 melee Banelings, one-shot probes. Right. So this is where we might see Dark start to do some drops or something like that. Also, just any attack that comes in, you must literally pull your probes perfectly or you will just lose them all. We also do not see Psystorm yet. And if you do not have Psystorm, the speed Banelings will eviscerate your army.
True. Fair points. The counterpoint I would only add to that is right now it's just now a 4th going down for Dark. The hatchery has finished, but there's no saturation there. And the majority of this time has been spent with both players on 3 bases. That's generally speaking very bad for Dark, who is now behind in 4 workers. So it's not the biggest of deals he's back in 4 workers, but I'm trying to do that to illustrate how aggressive Dark is. And Artosis talked about this in game 1. That's a place of comfort for him, but it's also a place of danger. If you make a couple of choices, things don't get done for you. We're talking about a Zerg that just dies. It becomes a math equation. So there's that first Baneling attack. It doesn't do much. Next one getting queued up here. And if you look at the production tab, it's all Lings, it's all Banelings, and
he's
it's all
going
Hydras.
for it, man. With +2 on these, I mean, this is going to be a hard hold. There's no doubt about it. A ton of Banelings being made. There are some Archons coming up. That's nice. But if the Banelings start to connect, oh my God, look at this flank he's setting up. Look at this right now.
Gets picked up. The stasis ward freezes him.
Wow.
Brilliant defense so far.
Wow.
It's just sentries. It's just oracles to hold off this stuff the way he just did it. There still are Banelings out here, so don't get too excited just yet. If you're a ShoWTimE fan, Dark wants the series to go to game 3. He's going to start hammering away at the front. Here come the Banelings. One force field seals them off. But for how long? The next gateway does die here. Banelings waddling back and forth, trying to get in there, but the gun line of ShoWTimE holding strong. They're pummeling through those Banelings. They're not connecting with anything. And Dark pulls back with his tail between his legs a little bit. He's going to rearm with some more Banelings, but the Phoenix still hovering about. Kind of scout that out right now.
The precision of this defense between the stasis ward, the force fields that came up at the last possible second every time, and all the lifts on Banelings, I have the sickest nerd chills right now.
The wall.
That defense, oh my God. Why would anyone ever attack ShoWTimE?
Well,
why would you ever attack him? I am almost getting scared for Haas.
Okay. Well, fortunately for you, he's not going to have to worry about that. ShoWTimE has its way here.
I know,
Storm's
right?
about to finish. Templar coming out. Dark is going to plan B a little bit. He's expanding behind this. Saturation-wise, he still only just has the 70 workers. He's going to come up here at this rearmed wall. And the army's slightly out of position, so one gateway dies essentially for free. The 2 being warped in, close to death. Here comes the Banelings, but they get trapped in the force field and picked off for free. 6 force fields go down, and now the Immortal count's so high that if you can't connect with your Banelings, what are you going to do? Storm is about to finish, and with the Templar added into this arsenal, what is Dark? He's got to fall back. It's got to be lurkers or something else, right?
You can see that he's scared, right? Now he's just making 30 Lings and 5 drones because he's like, oh gosh, I really got to get up to 70 drones here. He's also getting Overlord speed, so we're finally going to see those drops come into play. Whether he tries to drop in mineral lines or on top of the army is yet to be seen. But don't count him out yet. I mean, the Ling Bane Hydra is such a volatile comp. Yeah. If you like just hit those High Templars there with the Banelings, it's like, oh, I still win ShoWTimE. You played really well though. Haha, GG. Let's go to map 3.
The Banelings connect at all, basically. I mean, it's a dangerous game here for ShoWTimE. He's getting attacked on both sides. It's mostly stasis wards and other things. Oh my God.
What a catch.
Sometimes it's good to be good and it's better to be lucky. The Phoenix catch all the drop lords. They're going to pick off at least a few before the Hydras get over here. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The other side, he at least scouts it. He knows those Overlords have the upgrade, or he should at least. He sees 5 of them there moving quite quickly. And they do graphically change when they get the upgrade. That was...
Just to see the intent is so important. And now look at Dark. Those get caught. What does he do? Infestation Pit, Lurker Den. ShoWTimE is like leading Dark by the hand through every stage of Zerg trying to kill Protoss.
Take it the late game, bro. We're going there. You can't kill.
It's like
and
next
he's
live
adding
Lurkers.
targets ahead of it, too.
Yeah. Now there's going to be carriers coming out, and then he's going to hold his hand and bring him into the Hive Tech with the Broodlords and the Corruptors.
Well, here comes Dark. He's got an Overlord. It's infiltrated kind of in plain sight, making its way to the mineral line.
Oh my gosh.
And it's got the Banelings in there. As Zarathostra said, they do one shot, and there's just too much going on. There's no way he's going to see this. He's going to lose quite a few probes. 10 die immediately.
Oh, I better bring these over here
Yeah,
now.
sure, why not?
Oh my gosh.
He doesn't see that either. I mean, look at the minimap. They're still going back and forth. It's more important to control the army, and then because of that, Dark is taking advantage.
Oh,
25 probes decimated.
That was pretty all right. That was pretty all right.
Good. I mean,
look at this. Dark somehow has a 2K, 1K bank maxed out. After all this, look how many bases he has. There's been so much action. We haven't really commented too much on the fact that he has gone up to 5 bases at this point. But, I mean, ShoWTimE's still on 4. He's making his carrier attack.
He's already making carrier.
Yeah.
That's the scariest thing. Hive Tech's about to finish. You know it's going to be Lurkers insta-burrowing. Answers will be there for carriers, of course, but I still like ShoWTimE's positioning by a lot.
Something happened. We couldn't install a feature.
Dark's about to lose to a Protoss. There's got to be something wrong with the computer. 5 Overlords splitting up here again. Why not? There's so much chaos going around. These Phoenix remaining pretty annoying. Dark not able to get it done with his army. He's going to come in here now. Those Overlords on top. One goes down to just the storms and a little bit of anti-air, but they're dropping on top. It's actually great positioning by ShoWTimE. I'm sorry if I sound mega biased, guys, but he's actually putting together a phenomenal defense. If any of these fights go differently, like, it's not the same. ShoWTimE, if he gets connected by those Banelings and loses the Templar or loses the sentries,
the game would have been over by now.
The Immortals die to Hydra Ling. It's not even close.
The fact that he's kept his entire composition together this long,
oh my God,
means that he can have these carriers out and start poking around. Like, ShoWTimE, it's so weird because he's defended as close to perfectly as I can really imagine, right?
And he's still in danger of losing.
The one thing we can say is there hasn't been counter harassment from him, really.
Not as much.
Not too much. Like, he tried to kill a hatch, he didn't quite get it. We even saw the error thing popped up. I mean, we thought the hatchery was going to go, it didn't. A little bit of an issue, but he's still got all these valuable units. So he's sitting here maxed, a great composition, increasing that carrier count, and that means that Dark has to tech up more. He has to get that Spire, he has to start thinking about Corruptors, maybe Vipers, I don't know, you know, something
There's the Vipers, you're right.
Yeah.
And again, I won't go too as in-depth as I did in Game 1, but the concern here for ShoWTimE as well is that he's been kind of ahead on these defenses, and a lot of Protoss would just add the 8 gateways, push out off of that, and say, you're on 4 or 5 base, why don't we go ahead and make that 3? And if I take that fight out on the map, I win the game. ShoWTimE's not that guy. For the most part, he'll pull back, defend, tech up, and he's making this super army. So a lot of these Zealots are going to start leaving this composition, maybe some of the Immortals, because he does have a lot of them, so you can see those Immortals making their way out there. They are to be sacrificed. As the army becomes more around the idea of Templar, Archons, some Immortals, carriers, and maybe a Mothership. Well, there's the Mothership right there.
Yeah, I love that he's starting to send out some of these units as well. It's like, okay, go do what you can, 3 Immortals. You guys have done well for me, but it's time to tech up.
They're actually being taken.
You know your composition is getting good, Jeff, when you're throwing away Immortals.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Right? That's really, that's the key right there.
And there's the 5th base for our Protoss player. He's going to go along that right side of the map. That does open up some positioning here for these Zealots. Now, actually, if they target down the hatchery, they probably kill it. Lurker's making their way over here. It's going to be close.
Ooh, he gets it. Very
good
nice.
damage there for the Zealots.
Yeah.
And that opens up positioning for the right side of the map as well. Gone are the days, by the way, where a Nexus is safe with just like a shield battery and 2 dudes. So you're going to need, yeah, exactly, cannons.
4 cannons and 2 dudes.
And those dudes are Immortals at this point in time, too. It's like playing an RPG where you start off with Zealots, you get to Adepts, but then if you level up enough, you get Immortals.
Well, they're still going to do a little bit of work in here. Looks like a counterattack coming in, going to maybe force a cancel. Is he going to be able to actually save that? If he right-clicks on that, it might go down.
Ooh.
Oh, going to run away for now.
They could have... you need Archons to answer for those Corruptors, so like just the 1 Archon's not enough. Here come the Lurkers.
Well, with that quick burrow, they get right in on top of this. A recall here from ShoWTimE.
That's going to kill the 5th, though. Look at the minimap.
Oh, my gosh. You are right about that. Some great lifts. So he loses this along with some probes. I think that he can come back from that, but killing these Lurkers isn't bad.
No.
They're valuable.
It's a lot of Lurkers that die. As you point out, there is a big bank for our Zerg player, though, so a little bit of that is get rid of some of the supplies so I can kind of start maximizing and dealing with those carriers That being said, though, this base does get defended. It gets a little bit expensive, so the supply for Dark has plummeted here. Gas, not the highest, and he's spent most of his money on Corruptors. We do not have Broodlords out there just yet, which is still fine, because he's facing carriers with no real ground army to speak of. And speaking of banks, ShoWTimE has none for them. he's very poor down there.
Indeed.
So this
just
becomes extremely important.
He added 5 Archons. So between the Storms and the 5 Archons being added in, these Corruptors are going to have a hard time.
No, it can't be just the Corruptors. It's got to be something else in there. Everybody, don't tell that to Dark. Here he comes. He's going to jump on top of that mothership. The Archons are in that position. Storms going absolutely wild here. The mothership does die almost immediately with the Lurkers. They should push off that ground army, and now the Corruptors trying to angle for a position on the carriers. They don't quite get it, but it's also ShoWTimE angling for position. He says, if I don't have to fight those Lurkers, I'm probably killing a base. And you got to be careful. With the Corruptors, they kind of bunch up. If 3 Archons shoot in the middle of that, they're all gone. Or any storm, really.
You're quite right. And I love this usage of those Lurkers as well, kind of zoning everything back. Dark runs in, turns around. He's getting some decent damage done to ShoWTimE's army. This type of army is so difficult for Zerg to actually attack into.
And ShoWTimE's not expanding behind this.
Oh, man.
Just now.
Get that Nexus
Just
up.
now. What is the red on the minimap there? Okay.
It's ShoWTimE.
Well, no, I was talking about these guys. They actually
Any
show
other
up as red
questions,
on the minimap. Changelings show up as red on the minimap. That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Well, now everyone knows how to scout you. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. They didn't need to know. No, it's fine.
But look, I mean, the carrier army is still very, very, very scary. He comes up now, bringing his spores with him, bringing those Lurkers as well.
Jeez. First storm hits all the Hydras. This actually could be disastrous for either player, of course, but I'm looking at Dark as potentially losing its Corruptors, fighting over top of the Archons, taking a lot of storms to the teeth. They're chasing that army as it kites backward and storms. The carriers are quite low, but they're still remaining there. The storm count is, I think he only has like 1 or 2 available in the entire army.
I gotta say, the angles, every time Dark comes in with his Corruptors, he's coming in at angles where the Archons have a hard time, and they're like, for instance, he was over that little ledge, and the Archons all tried to go up, and then they took some additional Lurker hits, and ShoWTimE's like, okay, I'm getting out of here, you know? But Dark is being so careful with his Corruptors. A lot of times you'll see the Zerg just be like, okay, I gotta try, and then the Archons eat them alive, but he's really kept his Corruptors alive.
A couple of Immortals being shaved off here. It's not about being maxed, by the way. It doesn't really have the money for that, so this is definitely more of a distraction for us, trying to lower the health on that hatchery, maybe make it a nice target for later. That is mostly the healthy mining base for Dark, who is, again, very broke, low in minerals, only has the 50 workers, which at this stage of the game is actually not terrible, because you're only going to be mining off of 2 bases for the most part, so you need about 44, 50 workers, somewhere in that ballpark. Zealots jumping in here, though, and making things complicated. The engagement over here on the left side is going to be a little bit sloppy, if I could say. There still are the Spore Crawlers there, and that's not much of a staging point at any point here at all now. And the Lurkers are getting caught off guard. This is getting quite bad for Dark. This might be the end of things.
This is a great moment right here. Now the High Templars have a little bit more rain, and they come right up to the front, throw some storms on the Corruptors. A good split by Dark, though. He picks off a carrier, loses a couple Corruptors, but backs out once again.
Yep.
And by the way, Void Rays and Vipers going to be joining the fight.
Yeah, but one of those 2 players can afford to be adding stuff right now. Dark is like asking, he's calling his parents, like, do you have money for a Corruptor, for Pete's sakes? I need it. Trying to get some Banelings in there to maybe to connect with those Zealots and Templar, but he's just not going to get them. Another base will die. Now, this is a base that's mostly depleted, so it's not the biggest of deals, but it is one of the legs for sure off of Dark, who is now down 80 supply. Most of that in army, and this juggernaut of a Protoss force is making its way to the other base. So if that was a leg, this is going for the midsection. Dark is not looking for any kind of defense at this point in time. He's doing kind of a counterattack, but he's getting repelled. Artosis, this could be the first time he loses to a non-Korean Protoss in 6 years.
That is a huge stat, but if it was gonna be someone, it might have been ShoWTimE for sure. Dark still trying to do what he can. These abducts actually not too bad, throwing down a couple parasitic bombs, but I don't think Dark has enough.
He just doesn't have enough. He has to fight over here. The hatchery's already dead. It's just some smattering of lings. And now the Corruptors jump on top of this. They're going to get their toll, but that's it. Dark taps out GG. And ShoWTimE shows up to BlizzCon opening weekend and takes out Dark 2-0. Artosis, nobody thought that was going to happen.
Chills, man, chills. These non-Korean players have gotten to just such a ridiculous level. ShoWTimE showing the utmost skill, taking a swig of his GG juice, and to beat Dark 2-0 And going to that winners match against Stats, a player that we know he can go toe-to-toe with.
Comes out first in the group potentially. That'd be amazing. And he does it with his play style too. He defended, he read this, and I love what you were talking about in particular in game number 2, leading him throughout it. He says, no, Hydrolink Bailey's not going to do it. You need lurkers. You need something else. You need Hive Tech. Absolutely stunning play. Let's throw it down to our friends on that broken couch. I want to hear these guys talk about it. Take it away, James.
Thank you very much. ShoWTimE starting things off with day number 2 with a bang, an absolute bang. Unbelievable result coming out from ShoWTimE, considering the past and the prestige that Dark has had when it comes against non-Koreans.
The wall holds. I mean, me and Todd were sitting there backstage, and we were like, I think Dark's just going to roll over him with Hydra Bane, man. Like, there's no way you hold this attack. And okay, the wall teaches us differently.
Yeah, he made it look easy even. Like, I was really, really shocked at that hold in the second game. Dark, though, you know, was he playing his best here, really? You know, we talked about he was maybe a little bit under the weather. That proxy hatchery, I feel, didn't do enough.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like the worst, but at the same time...
It was scouted immediately.
Yeah, and like ShoWTimE reacted properly across the map. He got the hatchery snipe, then into the recall. So ShoWTimE definitely on points. I don't know, he said he had like a headache or something. He didn't show at all here, that's for sure.
Well, he just stopped wave after wave of aggression, right? Like, it was so impressive because we're used to seeing players, they're good like that on ladder, right? They're good in like some other tournaments. You come to BlizzCon, it's hard to execute like wave after wave of defense like that, but he was just stopping everything.
I think to touch on what Todd was saying, like, yeah, Dark had a bit of a wonky game in game 1 with that start of the hatchery being scouted immediately, making things pretty nice for ShoWTimE, but game 2 was pretty solid, I think, from Dark. Like, he played very, very well in that one. That hold at the third Nexus on the left-hand, when Dark was coming in with the Bane on the right-hand side, coming in with his Hydroling Bane on the left-hand side, that hold was miraculous. It was one of the best PvZ holds I've ever seen.
Very impressive.
ShoWTime's really coming to impress.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. We're going to go to an interview, and we can talk about it in just a few moments' time. So let's hear from ShoWTimE with Haji-san.
And I'm here with the Mauer. What a impressive defense here. Congratulations. Okay, and you're the first non-Korean pros to beat Dark in 6 years. Did you know that?
I did not. I mean, he's known as a foreigner killer, but yeah, it feels pretty good, I guess. Although he's a bit sick, so maybe it takes a bit away from it. But yeah, I'm still happy about it.
Okay, so let's talk about game 1. Fracture is a map like players don't really like right now. And did you expect something that aggressive from here with a proxy hatch and everything?
To be honest, I was hoping he would attack me in some way. I didn't expect the proxy hatchery, but my probe saw its drone leave. I don't know if you noticed actually, because I sent it a bit earlier than the usual timing. So I knew pretty early what he was going to do, and from there on it was a bit harder still than I expected, but yeah, pretty straightforward.
So were you the one who chose that map?
He chose it actually.
Oh, okay. And so you practice PvZ in Korea and in Europe, and you often say that the Zergs are pretty different, like the Korean Zergs and European Zergs have different styles. So how is it different?
It depends a bit on the player, I would say, but Koreans, they don't want to go for late game usually. Like, they feel like Protoss always wins late game. And in the foreign scene, like if you have Cyril, for example, he feels really good late game, and almost never beat him in late game. So it's very different. Like in Korea, I feel like you just defend all the time, and you just win at some point. While in the foreign scene, even if you get to the late game, you know it's not necessarily a win. So I think Koreans are just more aggressive.
And do you like that style? Do you feel comfortable playing against Korean Zergs?
It's easier than foreigners, I think.
Okay, so we saw that it was an impressive series against Dark, and now you're going against Stats. Do you feel confident?
Stats is really good PvP. When he was playing against Zest in GSL, I was helping him a little bit to prepare, so I guess we kind of know each other's style a bit. But yeah, I mean, PvP is a lot about build orders, and you can get lucky or unlucky depending on what you choose. So I feel good about my PvP, but we'll see if I get lucky, I guess.
Well, congratulations again, and best of luck for the next game against Stats. And back to you, James.
Playing against Korean Zergs easier than playing against the foreigners. Impressive stuff coming out from ShoWTimE. What a statement to end that after defeating Dark there in his first match in the group. I'm just coming back to the series as a whole, guys. What are your thoughts? Because overall, it was pretty incredible and immaculate how ShoWTimE was able to hold on overall through that series.
Yeah, you know, game 1 was just very nice from him, but things did get a bit dicey. As he said, he thought it would be a little bit easier after he scouted that proxy hatch, went for this really kind of funky shield battery counterattack, but I think, you know, it was very narrow that he got the hatchery snipe in game one. If he didn't get that hatchery snipe, that could have been a different game. Dark still definitely pushed him to the limits. I think these Zerglings came back and they kind of disengaged from the score.
Yeah, right there. That was a little strange from Dark.
Yeah, and you could see it was like only a few extra hits here. Those shield batteries were running low on energy when it went down, so that would have definitely changed things up. I also think in the second game, you know, when the Hydra Bane attack came in, what do you guys think about him maybe breaking down the rocks on the 4th base and then coming in from 3 angles? Because I feel like ShoWTimE had to use every single force field to barely hang on there.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. Like, ShoWTimE is so good at holding and positioning his army that maybe, you know, Dark usually would be able to just kind of win against almost anybody else in this position. So when we look at it that way, you know, maybe we're able to say, like, oh, he could have done that, that, and that. But I think in the moment, you just think, like, oh, I'm going to attack, and that's going to be enough. I got to say, though, it's good to hear some confidence from ShoWTimE in that he said, I was hoping that he would play aggressive. And like when I saw the proxy hatchery, I knew that I had won. It was just maybe slightly harder than I thought. Because usually, you know, out of guys like Nib and Cyril, we don't get that much confidence in the interviews. You know, they're more like, you know, in Nib's case in particular, it's like, I don't think I'm that good or something. We hear stuff like this, so
overall,
it's good to hear some confidence.
Yeah, I think it's not only the interview, but also even just the result itself. It's a big statement coming in for ShoWTimE into this group, when a lot of people may not, they say, okay, this group, you got your Classic, you got your Dark, that's probably what's going to happen. No, ShoWTimE's here to play.
Yeah, there's a couple of groups here where people are like, yeah, the 2 greens get through, easy peasy, no problem. Not necessarily going to be the case. I mean, if ShoWTimE keeps playing like this, he's going to be coming through, if not first, at least second. Like, he looks so good. He's a massive threat to the Koreans here.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about, of course, he was saying that, you know, some of our foreign Zergs can be a bit harder to play against. So I'm sure he would, if he gets into the bracket stage, he would want to avoid those. But people like Rogue, I mean, they do have some aggressive tendencies themselves as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think even with someone like Rogue, who's not going to throw out as many of these cheesy builds as Dark, he's still going to try and finish it more in the late mid game rather than going to like the, you know, ShoWTimE was talking about Cyril specifically, who's like happy to be flying around with squads of corruptors, picking up carriers, abducting
at
motherships.
600 APM.
Yeah, with like 46 spore crawlers on the map.
Normal
just
things.
like, you know,
standard Cyril.
Casual 36-minute Protoss versus Zerg game, just standard stuff, man. So, yeah, I mean, I think there are a few different styles like that, but ultimately, definitely, you do see more aggression out of these players. But this group specifically as well, I think the big reason a lot of people didn't say ShoWTimE had a massive chance was because of this first match. Because we've said, you know, PvP, it's not like he's a favorite versus stats, but we think that's a much more close to even match with how they go up against each other. And even if he loses there, you know, it's either a rematch against Dark or against Haas. So suddenly, I think ShoWTimE is looking much more like a potential favorite in this group.
It's very good to have ShoWTimE back, by the way. Like he had a tough year last year. Before that, in the past, he's made top 8.
Yeah.
After beating guys like Beyond in the group stage. So it's really good to see him back here and performing again.